Leslie Parker and Richard Smith from Severn Trent. That will be followed by an open reflection session, which Erica and I are going to lead, where we can have our aha moments. So make notes of some of your ahas as we're going through this afternoon. I expect you already have a few from Nick, and I'm sure you'll have a few more as we listen to Leslie and to Richard. To introduce Leslie then, Leslie is the innovation lead at Severn Trent. She's a long-time member of the Knowledge Innovation Network at Warwick, a real networker and a really valuable contributor to KIN over many years. So thank you, Leslie, for all you've contributed over time. Very, very valuable indeed. And Richard is down as the Innovation Model Sites lead. And I've seen somewhere else as well, Richard, you're described as a tech guru. So I think that's quite a nice, yeah, I found that on the internet. It's down there on the internet, so it must be true. He's shaking his head. So I am now going to hand over to you guys to take control. So over to you, Leslie and Richard.
Thanks, Debbie. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Leslie Parker at Severn Trent. I work in the innovation team alongside Richard as well. So say hello, Richard. Are you off mute?
I'm off mute. Hello.
Good. So I'm in sunny 29-degree heat, South Leicestershire at the moment, and we're presenting the socially distanced, as Richard's way over there in Worcestershire, on one of our sewage treatment works, and it's actually part of our story today. So we were quite excited to be following Nick Harkaway, like a bona fide sci-fi writer, and got a little excited with our sci-fi theme. So you may spot that that comes up quite a bit throughout our presentation. I'm going to just share my screen with you, so hopefully you'll be able to see. Where have I got the presentation? That's today. So hopefully, Debbie, can you see the first page of our slides?
I can indeed. Looks perfect.
Right, okay, so we'll talk through these. So Rich and I have got about 40 minutes with you. We're gonna share some of our story with you for about 25-30 minutes, and then leave lots of time for questions. And yes, we did want to kind of carry on a little bit with the sci-fi theme. So we call this our Hitchhiker's Guide to Invention. Really, it's a little update on the story that we probably presented to KIN about 2 years ago, we just got a story to tell you that's a little bit about sort of where we've got to on our innovation journey, but it's also about how we brought it to life through a piece of work that Richard's been really closely involved in. So we didn't bring it to life by reanimating pigs. We reanimated Richard and set him to work on building what you see there. Actually, this is a little bit of the corner of the test pad, which is outside Richard's office window right now. It's quite space agey looking, isn't it? I think it looks quite good. So our agenda for the next sort of 25-30 minutes is really just to tell you a little bit about our journey, our odyssey. Where did we set out for? Where are we kind of ending up? What have we learned along the way? So yeah, you'll spot some sci-fi references. So your challenge for staying awake for the next half an hour is how many can you spot? And the answer is not 42. So that's a clue.
If only.
If only. So a little bit, first of all, just the obligatory, for those who don't know us, and actually it feels like we've got quite a few Severn Trent colleagues on the line today, which is great, and a few other UU colleagues and environment agents, and people who probably know a little bit about our world. But if you don't know about Severn Trent, we're the water and wastewater utility for the Midlands area, for the region. There's some facts and figures there about us. So we've got about 8 million customers. We're second biggest probably in size of customers behind Thames, but we cover quite a large geographic patch, have an awful lot of pipes, quite a few treatment works, and one interesting fact about our patch compared to all the other water companies, we're the only ones that don't have a coastline. So that in itself is one of the things that has had to make us be quite innovative. So we haven't been able to discharge anything to coast, to sea, so we've been quite innovative around some of our practices in Severn Trent. That's a little bit about us. Chapter 1, where we were. So we're boldly going on Innovation Odyssey. So I'm going to take you back 2 years. For those of you who may have been at the Shard, and I was really hoping we'd be at the Shard this time. We were supposed to be there in March, weren't we? And 2 years ago, I was there with my colleague Ali. We were just setting out on a brand new innovation journey. We were becoming the Open Innovation team, and we told you a little bit about what our ambition was, what we were hoping to do. So the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes is a bit of just an update on some of the things we've learned on the way, how our journey's going, because we're still very much on a journey. In fact, we've restructured only earlier this year, and our new innovation strategy is emerging, and we'll allude to that a little bit, but it's a never-ending journey. So Ali and I were there 2 years ago, and a lot can happen in 2 years. And actually, I put this slide together at the beginning of the year when Debbie first talked to us about doing something for the Kid event in March. And I'm trying to think what things happened in the last 2 years, that just stuff that I hadn't really known would exist 2 years later. And it's a little bit, some of this, looking back on this, Richard and I haven't changed the slides very much in the last few months to present them today. But it's been a little bit sad to look at some of this and think, well, we've still got wildfires raging in America. It was Australia back in March. Coronavirus is definitely been firmly here to visit us. And actually, the Black Panther movie poster, which I put on, very sadly that actor's died since then. So the world is constantly changing and constantly evolving, and all these kind of things have changed our world in Severn Trent, and it's definitely shaped our innovation journey along the way. So just to kind of encapsulate it, and our innovation strategy is emerging and evolving. As I said, we've reorganised, restructured recently, but essentially what we've always been here to do, and what we still do, is to research and develop new solutions within our business. We incubate, we experiment, sometimes we adopt existing solutions where we can be fast followers, so we'll do that. And we want to learn from others and collaborate locally, nationally and globally. So we've got a sort of quite a broad strategy. We've got our innovation challenges. We sort of identify those. We've got things out on our website that we can sort of reach out to and engage with technology partners and subject matter experts. So we set out our course and where we're looking to steer externally, but we're evolving it internally all the time. And our innovation funnel, anybody who's worked in innovation will know that this is a sort of a standard practice for how you kind of work things in your pipeline. We've got a front end where we identify and target and prioritise what we need to bring into our business. We've got some trials that we go on and deliver through the portfolio, and at the back end of it, there's some business outcomes that we want our internal customers, our colleagues, to adopt a nicely packaged present. So they'll get a new piece of technology or a new way of working or a new model, whatever it is. That's what the innovation team is there to sort of deliver, and that's how our funnel works. And the timeline of these things can shift, but essentially we're looking at sort of medium term innovation for most of our portfolio. The business is looking for a lot of short-term innovation where we've got problems and challenges that we're solving, and the things we probably find a little bit harder are getting our colleagues to pick up their heads and think about long-term innovation and how do you get thinking beyond our 5-year business planning cycles. But the funnel works in a way that you see in quite a lot of organisations. So I'm going to hand it to Richard for this bit, because we just wanted to run a little poll with you about areas of innovation or areas that are important to us and the world that we're working in. Richard, do you want to explain this bit?
Yep, can do. Do you want to move on one slide?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I guess you've heard a little bit about how closely connected we are to our local environment and the communities we serve, and we think the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a great way of kind of describing that. So I've got a bit of a challenge for you just to get you thinking. If you move on a slide, Leslie. So of all of those Sustainable Development Goals, I'm kind of interested in understanding where you think our activities deliver to those communities. And I don't know quite who's got control of the poll. Ah, there we go. Fantastic. Look at that. It appears by magic. So if I could get you to think about those group 1, group 2, group 3 and group 4. So group 4 is everything. Group 1 is focused on water and sanitation, clean energy, protecting life above and below land and the climate. And then there's a few more in Group 2. I don't know how well you can see that as a slide. There we go. Fantastic.
I was just going to say, actually, Richard, it'd be good if that's better, just to expand it so people can see the details there, because it's quite hard to see what's being referred to there. So can you summarize as we go through then? So Group 1 is basic, is it?
So Group 1 has got things like clean water and sanitation, clean energy, life below water, protect the planet. The additional ones in Group 2 to that original set of things like responsible consumption, life on land. I'm gonna have to, and then Group 3 goes even wider, so includes things like gender equality, good jobs and economic growth, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequities. And then the Group 4 is pretty much everything, all 17.
Okay, so if you could very kindly just take a view on that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be too accurate. It's quite hard to see some of those points there, but I think we get the gist. So Group 1 and Group 2 feel very closely aligned with water, but maybe Group 3 and Group 4 maybe feel a bit broader than what you might expect from a water company. So it'd be very interesting to see what you think, what our delegates think today in terms of what activities a water company should be really aiming for in terms of the community it serves then. So whilst we're just waiting for people to answer that then, are you, does Severn Trent focus on, I guess it focuses just on delivery in this country, it doesn't go outside of this country, is that right?
So yes, most of our activities are focused in the UK, yeah. Okay,
yeah, sure. I was just wondering there, because that could influence the outcome. Okay, so it looks like we've got the poll results now up, so very good. Okay, so most people are setting ambitious targets for you guys.
And that's really good, because in truth, the honest answer is all of the above. I would suggest that perhaps we've got the Group 1 I would see as sort of our core activities, where we've got that mandate to provide water and wastewater services. I mean, Severn Trent's the biggest UK provider of anaerobic digestion. We develop something like 50% of our own clean energy, or 50% of our energy needs are produced by our own clean energy things. We've got lots of input in terms of recycling nutrients and carbon through our biosolids activities, and we do quite a lot of things obviously in the aquatic environment. A good example of protecting animals in underwater is things like eel ladders that we're obliged to put in. But as you work up those groups, obviously we've got we touch on all of these things, and fundamentally, yeah, up to Group 4, with everything in there is something in all of our business that does that. So yeah, everybody's got all of the right answers. There isn't a wrong answer in any of that, I think. So I think, Leslie, we can move on one, I think. So in practicals, and why do we need to innovate? What are some of the challenges we face as an industry? Well, they're all very public, I'm sure you'll agree, and not entirely all of our own making. So we've got climate change challenges. We've gone from 2018, where we've got some of the longest and driest droughts that we've seen for many years, to last winter, where we saw some of the most severe flooding, certainly across the Midlands, and all of the challenges that brings to our core business. We've got lots of problems around customer behaviour, and if you take no other message away from this afternoon, it's toilets are for the 3 Ps, right? Paper, poo, and pee. Okay, so we have plenty of challenges around things like that. I'm sure you've seen lots of the programmes on the television over the last 18 months or so focusing on fatbergs. So everything you do in terms of wet wipes, in terms of fats, oils and greases that gets into the sewer can cause significant issues. So customer behaviour, and also in terms of water usage, we've had significant challenges as an industry over this latest lockdown period with high water use. just associated with people filling up paddling pools. I saw a chat message going up earlier saying the paddling pool will be nice and warm by the time I get out, and I nearly buried my head in my hands. Please don't have a paddling pool. Not unless it's really, really desperate. And if you do have it, please keep the water in it, don't chuck it away at the end of the day. We've got lots of challenges around ageing infrastructure. I mean, some of our most critical assets were built by the Victorians, and we're finding ever cleverer ways of keeping those in service and maintaining them, and always challenged by new regulations. I see there's a gentleman on from the Environment Agency, so we're challenged with removing ever more difficult contaminants of concern. So things like microplastics, things like pharmaceuticals are coming high up the agenda in terms of wastewater treatment. So there's lots of reasons for us to innovate. We can't stand still, and we kind of need to find new ways of working and new technologies that allow us to address all of those problems. I think Leslie's going to pick up chapter 2 now.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea sort of where we've been and why we're still on this innovation journey. We're never gonna not need to innovate really in our industry. So in chapter 2, though, we're moving on to a bit about where we are now. So, we're arriving at an interstellar destination. We like to think it's pretty cool at the moment. So there's lots of things that we're doing that we didn't do before. So at the moment, we're all about building ecosystems where we've always partnered and collaborated outside of our business, but we're doing it so much more than we ever did before, and certainly. My peers out there from United Utilities and other water industries, we're doing so much sector collaboration at the moment because we're building a water sector innovation strategy collectively. And then we're accessing all these routes to funding as well, which is new. So Horizon 2020 and Innovate UK, there's lots of opportunities for us to work with European partners and work outside of our sort of natural environment. So building our ecosystem is something that's come along much more in the last 2 years. It's becoming more important. It's definitely a route that we're following and that we're beginning to expand more. One of the things that kind of hasn't changed, which is keeps going and keeps becoming more important, is about building our culture of innovation. So I've been banging this drum for years in Severn Trent, and it still needs work, and it still needs more. It's not something that you can just leave alone. You have to, anybody who works in knowledge management, any kin, you can't just build it and they'll come. You have to keep nurturing this, and you have to keep building that sort of environment. So we have lots of tools and things at our fingertips in Severn Trent that we use to generate that culture of innovation, whether it's our communities of practice or some of our comms channels, our ideas events like our annual Challenge Cup. So constantly trying to create an environment where ideas will flourish. And our innovation challenges keep changing. So a lot of them are essentially the same. We're always going to have a challenge around leakage. That was something that will always be on every water company's agenda, I think. But we're constantly refining and honing what exactly is our innovation challenge, what's our need. We publish these on our website. I'm now due for a refresh soon. So we want to engage externally as much as we can about how other people could help us with our challenges. So we invite ideas online and we invite partners to collaborate with us. So that's something we started to do 2 years ago, and we're still doing it, and that's still a sort of something that we want to do kind of going forward. So it's been a good thing. That's been a sort of a positive change that we made 2 years ago. Things that we've learned about, so open innovation, as we were 2 years ago out on that journey, we didn't do things like external funding. We didn't go after that. In the last 2 years, we've succeeded in securing more than £2 million in external funding and accessed over £15 million of leveraged funding through things like those European partners. We didn't run idea campaigns in any sort of clear way, and we started to instigate those within the business, and that achieved us quite a bit of good recognition from our regulator, from Ofwat, in our recent price review, and we got a shout out that this is a good culture at Severn Trent, the way we do ideas generation. I'm not going to steal Richard's thunder on the next one. R2IC, our physical space, because that's where he's at, and that is the manifestation of some of our innovation activity in the last 2 years. So he'll talk about that in the next chapter. We've got into business partnering with our business. That's worked really well in the last couple of years. We've got some champions within our business who will specifically devote their kind of focus to our water infra colleagues and teams, or our wastewater non-infra colleagues and teams. So we're able to kind of really get close to our internal customers. And the business partnering model is really effective for that. We've very recently started to combine our operational technology and our information technology. So we've had a coming together of our technology teams and our sort of more traditional innovation team. So that's enabling us to get to a really exciting place where those two intersect. Talked about building the ecosystem. That's been a new thing. We set up a worldwide innovation fund, along with UU actually. So I know Lorraine's on the call from UU. So there's a fund for specifically looking at worldwide innovation. So we've got partners from Australia and from Spain and from America who it's about knowledge sharing. So it's a big knowledge sharing network. You know, a bit like a KIN, but specifically around water innovation. And we've sort of worked a lot on getting a really balanced portfolio in the last couple of years. So that's been quite hard. There's been a lot of legacy of projects and things that we've carried over, but we're honing that a little bit more. So there's quite a bit that we've done in the last 2 years that we think that was a really good idea. We need to keep doing that and carry that on. We've learned some lessons as well. It's not all rosy, is it? There's always a few kind of banana skins along the way. Things that we've learned that we really need to get right on any innovation journey. EU procurement regs. We have had to absolutely embrace them, and it's hard. It's really hard work to work within the EU procurement regs. But there are utility regulations, and we can't get around it. So if we're developing a new piece of kit, new tech, we want to try something, we've got to work within those regulations, and it's difficult. Converting ideas into deliverables, so we get lots of ideas, it's great, but coming out of the back end and getting them adopted by the business, that has been traditionally difficult and continues to be a little bit, so we're working on that. The test quick and fail fast conundrum, we really want to achieve that culture. It's really hard to make it feel okay because people are human. And nobody wants to have the sort of the fail fast label or moniker, but we need to try and make that a good thing. That failing fast is absolutely acceptable, and our CEO is pretty good at that. She has said very publicly in the past, you know, bring me 10 ideas, and if 7 of them fail, that's fine. I want 3 sparkling gems. So you know, she's trying to engender that kind of confidence in us. Engaging with our stakeholders, we've always been a little bit shy of getting out there and talking about what we do and being very communicative about it, and we're getting better at that. But it is hard. We did some separating of roles at the start of this innovation journey a couple of years ago as well. We separated out the roles of project managers and technical experts. And that's been a difficult line to tread, because some project managers feel they're the technical expert and some technical experts feel they end up doing the project managing. So it's been a little, so role clarity, but yeah, Richard's nodding because he's fallen foul of that. It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to kind of just get that racy right, if you like. Getting the business to articulate its long-term needs, I think I said that, getting to think longer than 2 months or 5 years is really hard. And linking our technology and data science, that's the new opportunity we've got with our technology team and our innovation team kind of coming together. And there's always the old chestnut of, you know, when you do innovation, is it about earning or is it about learning? We're measured on return on innovation investment, we're measured on how it enables our performance for the business in a financial sense, but actually sometimes you've got to do innovation to learn as much as to earn. And we have that little conundrum as well. So some great stuff that's happened in the last 2 years, still some stuff we need to work on. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of where we've been and where we've got to and what we've learned in 2 years. But how about bringing it to life? So we've got a fantastic example of something that didn't exist 2 years ago, and it does now. And Richard's sitting in it, so I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about the R2IC.
Thank you. So Leslie's told you a lot about what we've been up to on our journey. I want to talk very specifically about a physical embodiment and that's really what I've been doing over the last, I guess, 4 years now. God, have I been back 4 years? That's a long time, isn't it? And so, could I move on a slide? That's okay. Thank you. So we I think as an industry and certainly as a company recognise there's lots of great stuff in wastewater. There's lots of energy, there's lots of nutrients, metals, cellulose, and we want to our journey, our kind of vision for wastewater is changing the mindset from managing a waste and delivering those kind of almost expected public health benefits and environmental benefits to a position where we're recovering the resources that are embedded in wastewater. And that means we're going to need to adopt lots of different ways of working, new technologies even. So we can already extract quite a significant amount of the energy that's embedded. We already do quite a lot of recycling of nutrients by taking our biosolids out to farmland. And by some manipulations of the treatment processes, we can even get to things like cellulose. We can produce biopolymers. We can produce proteins. All of those technology exist. The problem is they all exist in kind of university laboratories or at sort of very small scale. And so, as an innovator within a water company, we have three really tough audiences. The first are our operational colleagues. They're busy people. They are out there making sure the water ends up in your tap and the wastewater comes away when you pull the plug or flush the toilet. And so they really are focused on delivering the day job, and as such are pretty risk averse in terms of adopting new technologies and new ways of working, and rightly so. If you think about sort of in the water treatment world, a food factory mentality, you can't take any risks with the product that we're producing. So we have to be very sure when we launch new innovations that they are going to improve the service and improve the way we do things without burdening our operational colleagues. So they're a tough audience. Our engineers are really sort of focused on a massive delivery program. Every 5 years, we have had, over the last certainly 20 years, massive capital investment programs. And so starting to get new innovations into that kind of process of delivering delivering new technologies into that kind of sausage machine of capital investment takes a lot of work and a lot of convincing, because fundamentally they're driven on cost and quality and to a degree time. So they don't want to take any risks on time and cost because that's mostly where they're focused. And then we have our regulatory friends as well. So even though they set us new challenges to bring new, with new standards that we need to meet, they're also quite hamstrung by the way that the regulations are written. They can't necessarily consent to a process that isn't likely to deliver the environmental outcomes that they want. And so they need to be convinced and brought along the way when we're trying to change the model in terms of the way we treat wastewater. So we've got lots of reasons that it's quite difficult to embed operational technology. And what we found at the end of our last 5-year period is we'd done a trial site looking at a very specific issue, removal of phosphorus. And that allowed us to engage really well with our internal stakeholders, our operators and our engineers, but it also gave us some quite interesting benefits in terms of engaging with that wider regulatory cohort, so the Environment Agency and Ofwat and Natural England, people like that. So seeing and touching and feeling a technology really helps people adopt it or be more open to adopting it. And so we managed to pull together a business case. Can you move on one, Leslie, please? Now, this was a brilliant PowerPoint slide, and it was a video that played, and it kind of flew you over this, but you're just going to get the long distant picture of Spurnal Sewage Works here. So we put a business case together for developing basically a test pad. My boss calls it the Caravan Park, because what we hope to do is have technologies that just pull up. You can plug in for power, plug in for water, and plug in for data transfer. And in essence, basically test the unit at a scale that that allows the operators and the engineers to trust that the technology is capable of working in the real world. It's pretty unique in the UK because it's not only set up to test individual technologies, but we can link them together. So we can produce process trains. Wastewater treatment is all about combining physical, biological and chemical processes in a way that allows you to achieve the effluent standards you need at the lowest cost. So those process interactions are really important. In the past, a lot of our testing has just been on individual technologies. And then we kind of fingers crossed and kind of hide behind the nearest big concrete block when we put them into the actual processes. But being able to connect things up is a real change. It's got all the tools we need to do the testing. So we've got our own on-site lab. We've got fairly conventional chemical treatment, gas handling systems that we can plug into that allow us to test all sorts of different ways of working. And we've also been, in conjunction with this, developing a really exciting program. So our initial program is all focused on reducing the amount of energy required to treat wastewater. So I could get very sidetracked here because I get really excited about these. Now I'm getting the head shake from Leslie. So we've done things like figure out how we get the solids removed out of wastewater more efficiently and effectively. We've looked so at the moment we use an enormous amount of air. Sort of 50% of the energy that we use in wastewater treatment is all associated with blowing air into the wastewater so that the microorganisms that are there can eat the pollutants. So for Severn Trent, that's roughly about 12 million quid a year we spend on aerating wastewater. So we've been looking for technologies, and we've got a lovely kind of program of work that's been developed over a number of years at Cranfield University that figured out a way of doing this without air, so doing it anaerobically. And so they proved to us that they could do it at sort of 100 litres scale, but that wasn't going to ever be big enough to convince our operators or our engineers that we should build one of these things. So what we've done is we've committed to building one that does 500 cubic metres a day here at the test pad, and we're currently constructing that. So if you can hear any banging in the background, it's the lads installing the latest and greatest trial that we're going through. So that's kind of taking that technologies that have come out of universities and making it a size and a scale that gives confidence to our regulators and our internal stakeholders that we should be able to adopt this in our next asset management program, AMP8. So the next slide there, I'm obviously getting the nudge on here, I'm running out of time, is just taking that tunnel again. So we've learned quite a lot about how efficiently this test pad is at attracting external funding. So we've had a couple of trials on the pad already that have attracted EU grant funding. It's also allowed us to engage with our internal stakeholders and really sort of start developing those wastewater strategy roadmaps. So where are we going? We've learned a lot about how to package innovation trials in terms of the sorts of support that we need internally, how to deal with that procurement issues to make sure that we deliver them legally. And we're also getting much slicker at bringing technologies onto the pad, plugging them in, finding out whether they work and sending them off. We've even got to the point now where we're hiring it out to third parties so that we're getting third parties bringing their own technologies and using our test facilities to figure out just how good they are, which is great. And then the bit of the journey we've not quite got to is those business and what do you get at the end of it? So is it the full kind of design criteria? Is it how are we going to operate and maintain these? Is it a tick in the box from all of our operational colleagues to say, yeah, we're happy to take these new technologies on? But it's really exciting and it's developing really quickly. Leslie, can we have the next one? So in action, what have we gained from this? So that picture on the right hand side is, again, it's a video and I love it. So that's our micro flotation system. So that's separating the solids in wastewater, and it's a lovely little video that just shows you that blancmange being pushed up and over. But that's taken us a long while to get to, and it's a technology that's come from the aquaculture industry. So we're kind of we can take things from other industries and see whether they work in wastewater. The quote at the bottom is from our CEO. I'd love Liv and her enthusiasm, and every time she comes, she's brilliant. She's a real advocate for the place, but she comes too often, really. We're always trying to we're always trying to get her involved and helping us, but yeah, she's here so often we don't seem to get enough on the pad to meet the pace that she's really up for. I think that brings us on. So that's kind of what I've been up to in the last 3 years, I guess, delivering this test pad and this program of work. And we've just got to that point where it's getting really exciting and breaking into the capital program that's coming. So that blancmange type machine that you saw in the last slide is currently being assessed for rollout in the next 2 or 3 years.
Thank you there, Richard. We've probably got about another 2-3 minutes because I've got quite a few questions coming through, and it'd be really nice if we could have the chance to ask you a few of those questions. So 2-3 minutes.
This is the last slide.
Perfect timing.
That's why I was getting a nod. So what does the future look like? So we've got lots of challenges still that we'll need to address in the next few years. So as a company, we've made a triple carbon pledge, which means we'll be operationally carbon neutral by 2030. We will have a full electric fleet of vehicles, and we run both HGVs and sort of normal cars. And we'll also be 100% renewable energy in our programme. Obviously, climate change isn't going to go away. We're still going to be faced with all those flooding issues and with those challenges around droughts and water supply. Ofwat have delivered us a lovely price control, which drives us to be even more efficient and effective. But part of that price control comes a new innovation fund and a sort of a realisation that the sector needs to act as one to tackle some of these big issues, some of these the climate change type issues and customer service type issues that we all have in common. So there's now a £200 million fund that Ofwat will administer, and the water companies will engage with Ofwat to kind of focus that as we go forward through this sector innovation strategy. We definitely see there's lots of advantages in taking data science and applying it to some of our operational technology, making our assets more intelligent. We've got some really intelligent pumping stations that think for themselves here at Spurnell, and they've now been rolled out across the patch. So they're helping us manage pollution incidents, and they're driving down our energy use in our network. So if you think we've got 4,500 pumping stations across the patch, changing those controls to intelligence was hopefully going to save us quite a significant amount of money. Enabling outperformance. Well, obviously, if you have a regulator that says you can have this much money, we always want to outperform that. And so innovation is definitely focused in the next 5 years on helping the business outperform. And we recognise, as we've talked about, there's a lot of great stuff in wastewater, but really the underlying thinking around that is transitioning to the circular economy. We really see that as something that the company's long-term strategy is kind of well wedded into. We are and we will benefit from moving from that kind of linear extract, use, dispose market to a one where we are trying to reuse and as much of those natural resources as we possibly can. So I think that's all we've got to say. So how many sci-fi references did you get?
Well, there really were quite a few there, I have to say. Interstellar is one of my favourite films of all times, closely followed by Stranger Things, so that possibly says something about me there as well. So thank you very much, guys.